One of the main focuses of our show is what I think is one of the greatest threats to the Western way of life and to individual freedom, if not the single greatest threat, which is the emergence of a systemic, highly coordinated and organized and increasingly powerful regime of censorship that Western states, in conjunction with Western neoliberal billionaires and intelligence agencies, are now engineering in order to prevent what is their biggest fear, which is a free internet, namely the ability to speak freely over the internet, to express dissent and information over the internet, to organize politically over the internet. They just decided that this is something they can no longer tolerate because it takes away too much power from them and diffuses it to the population, which was the idea of the internet from the very beginning. If you read the literature in the 1990s, that was the idea. It was going to let people be liberated from centralized state and corporate control, decide what they read, decide with whom they speak, what information they want, how they organize, and you will be able to reach large numbers of people, and you don't need major media corporations and their dependence on states in order to do it. And that is what the internet was for a long time. And as we've talked about many times before, starting in 2016, two very traumatic events happened from the perspective of Western liberal elites. First, the British voted in a referendum, Brexit, to leave the EU, something that obviously Western elites were horrified by. And then just a few months later, they watched as the inevitable that they thought they were promised, Hillary Clinton's presidency, was instead derailed because Donald Trump defeated her. And you can trace that moment in history to the creation of this completely manufactured, fraudulent, anti-disinformation industry funded by a small handful of neoliberal billionaires and U.S. and Western security agencies that bestow these fake expertise on people to justify political censorship as though it were some sort of apolitical science. And then since then, the force of law has been deployed in the EU, in the UK, in Canada, in Brazil, all throughout the democratic world, to enforce these censorship demands, to punish big tech companies if they don't comply with state censorship orders. And we've shown you in the last 2 weeks that for whatever reason, Democrats seem to be speaking about this more and more as the election approaches. We've shown you people like John Kerry and Tim Walz and Kamala Harris over the years, and even Hillary Clinton saying that they don't believe a free internet is something that we can have anymore, that all sorts of speech that we've always known was constitutionally protected, things they call disinformation or things they believe are hate speech, they've been saying it's not constitutionally protected, even though Supreme Court precedent leaves no doubt that that's exactly what the First Amendment was designed to protect. We've shown you a lot of these interviews of them saying this just to make clear how pervasive this idea is among the highest levels of Democratic Party elites, but also Western elites. They talk openly about it now. They're not even ashamed of it anymore. And the only reason why I want to show you this clip from Hillary Clinton on CNN over the weekend was because it was such a perfect expression. She really unintentionally captured the panic and fear on the part of the ruling class elites that is driving them to try and crush a free internet. Listen to what she said.
We should be, in my view, repealing something called Section 230, which gave, platforms on the internet immunity because they were thought to be just pass-throughs, that they shouldn't be judged for the content that is posted. But we now know that that was an overly simple view, that if the platforms, whether it's Facebook or Twitter X or Instagram or TikTok, whatever they are, if they don't moderate and monitor the content, we lose total control. And it's not just the social and psychological effects, it's real harm.
That's exactly the whole point. And she said it perfectly. She said, if we don't get a handle on this, if we don't start making sure that we can either force big tech companies to censor for us or that we can do it for ourselves, quote, we lose control. And that's exactly what all of this is about. They're perfectly happy to have elections in the West as long as they can control the outcome, as long as they can limit the scope of ideas that could possibly be implemented based on whichever party happens to win or lose. They don't care if power is passed back and forth between two establishment parties. That doesn't change anything. It's just the people who are in government go to corporations and make a lot of money for a while, and then when their party wins, they come back and nothing really changes. And that's because for a long time, these people controlled how Americans think and what the limits were. But the internet has really changed that. The internet has allowed people to abandon these corporate media outlets that they do not trust for very good reason, to seek out their own information. And as a result, American and Western populations are getting increasingly uncontrollable, increasingly unpredictable in how they vote, in what they believe, in what their behavior is. And the Hillary Clintons of the world are petrified by this. And they don't know what to do about it. And they've been petrified about it for a long time. But once Brexit happened and once Trump happened, they knew that they could no longer allow it, that things had to get very serious. And that is what the cause of a free internet is about. Free speech on the internet, privacy, from surveillance on the internet. It is about whether the internet will actually be a legitimate, meaningful, formidable weapon in the hands of people to undermine the monopoly of information and thought that these large corporations controlled by the government have had for decades now, and whether they will be able to question and subvert and convince other people to abandon their belief in establishment dogma, or whether the Hillary Clintons of the world will regain the control to relegate dissent to the margins so that many people can't hear it anymore, and that way they can continue to control the thoughts, the information people's brains are receiving. Because if you can control the thoughts and the information that people are receiving, you can control exactly what they believe. And if you control what they believe, you will control how they behave. And I just think that was such a kind of, she was speaking so emotionally about this. They feel very emotional about this. They feel like it's their threat to the thing they most value, which is their singular ability that comes from their superior competence and knowledge to dictate what is truth and what is false, to force people to hear only their views and prevent them from hearing any dissent to it. And as she says, we're losing control. She lost control. She didn't win in 2016, even though she had virtually every establishment institution behind her. The Clinton machine was this gigantic, unbeatable machine in Democratic Party politics for so long. And then they watched Donald Trump win, and Donald Trump is, in this election, like he was in the last election, certainly with a very good chance to win again. And it's not just that, it's the emergence of parties throughout the democratic world, these populist parties that were once considered taboo and unthinkable. It is all raveling out of control for them. And they understand very well, establishment power centers always understand what threatens them. And whenever they identify what threatens them, they're going to set out to destroy it or commandeer it. And that's what this effort since 2017 has been all about, to re-seize the means of dissemination of thought and information, which is the internet, and put it back into their hands so that it's under their control, so that, as Hillary Clinton says, we don't lose control again. And that's why I think sometimes it might be a little hard to understand why this cause is so overarching. But if you can't access information, if you don't hear dissent, if you're not free to speak your mind in a way that other people can hear it, only the Hillary Clintons of the world are, then we live in a closed information system. And in a closed information system, authoritarianism will prevail because there's nothing stopping it. Only a free internet is the thing that can stop it. And that's why I believe, in the context of all the other issues, that it continues to stand above and be paramount in any cause that you believe in. Without that cause, if we lose that battle, everything else will fall with it.